Alright, man, peace. So, brothers, this video right here is going to be an entry into the Women Start Maturing at 45 series. I have not done an entry into this series for a very long time, and I finally found a segment that would be applicable. This is going to be starring the world-famous singer and entertainer Janet Jackson. What's going to be revealed about her are many of the sentiments that I've been intermittently touching on this channel for a very long time, particularly pertaining to the modern liberal female and the depression issues that she goes through from her late 20s all the way through her 30s, which is probably the most delusional time for her, because in their mind they're struggling with their own quote-unquote mortality. I have stated in other videos that when the female starts to approach her late 20s, she starts to take an inventory of her life, and she believes that if she does not have such and such amount of things on her quote-unquote checklist, that her life is a failure. And oftentimes that will cause them to make very bad decisions in regards to their relationships, their overall life in general. And then after they've made those very bad decisions in which they've embraced their Kali Ma persona, the destroyer goddess persona, where they will try to eradicate things in their life in their late 20s that they feel like are not up to snuff to the quote-unquote standards of society, the things that liberal females are supposed to have by a certain age: husband, house, kids, cars, the right job, etc. Once again, they'll try to decimate everything that's in their current life because they feel as if it's not holding weight. And then they get to be 32, 33, 34 years old, and they look back and they say, wow, I actually have something nice. And I fucked it up because I was listening to the television or her friends or her mother or what have you. But because of the fact that modern day feminism promotes pride, arrogance, and the lack of accountability, they have to hold all these thoughts inside, because they have to maintain this facade that they can do no wrong, that they're a quote-unquote strong woman, and that they can deal with the decisions that they've made, and for the most part they can't. And that leads to them becoming depressed and eventually becoming addicted to antidepressants. Many of these females that you pass by every day, brothers, are addicted to antidepressants. And I've always stated this: when you pay very close attention to the average liberal female, or really just average female, because for the most part the females in this society are liberal, when you work in corporate America and you pay very close attention to them, you'll notice on their screensavers they'll normally have a photo of themselves with their child. Why is that? Because they're trying to siphon the energy from the child to keep themselves going. For the most part, many females in this society have children just so that they can have something that will love them, because they feel as if they're incapable of maintaining a relationship with a man, because for all intents and purposes they no longer understand men. They have no desire to understand men because they have no respect for the masculine principle. So they fully embrace their mother goddess altar. And as I always state, the mother goddess is normally depicted holding the baby, holding the child, her son, by herself in all the statues from the ancient world. Everything is spiritual. That's why, once again, you'll see on their screensaver, it's normally the mother holding her child. She'll talk about how she's doing it all by herself. Meanwhile, inside, she's in turmoil. That's why I always implore you brothers, you so-called black men, to be very careful who you choose to inseminate. You have to be with a female for a very long period of time. And that time period from the age of about 28 to 33 is a very essential time period for the woman, because she believes at 30 years old that for the most part her life is over, that everything should be set, and if it's not where she thinks it should be, she will try to decimate it. So if you're in a quote-unquote relationship with a female and she's in that age group, or you both are in that age group, just be very, very aware of that. Because in your mind you might be saying, why is she going through all these mood swings? It's not necessarily mood swings, it's that she's having a hard time dealing with this next phase in her life. Because from the age of about 14 to 30, the female is made to believe that the world is her oyster, that she's the sexiest thing on the block, that she can dress how she wants, that she can do whatever she wants and never be held accountable. After the age of 30, now in her mind, she's starting to approach actual adulthood, where she has to stop playing games. Things have to get really real. And if things are not really real, and are not where she wants them to be, she is going to have a mental breakdown, and these breakdowns are going to last all through their 30s. Finally, they get to be about 45 and they start to mature. Outside of the maternal DNA, the female, there's not much difference between a 40-year-old or a 35-year-old female and a 15-year-old other than life experience in regards to their decision making. There's not much difference. So that brings us to Miss Janet Jackson. We all know that one of the things that Janet Jackson is known for is not only for her singing and her dancing, but also that ritualistic event that occurred with Justin Timberlake in which he exposed one of her breasts to reveal a nipple piercing, which seemed to indicate that it was in honor and veneration of the mother goddess symbol that was revealed. I believe that it had 8 points. The 8-pointed star is normally meant to symbolize a stargate, but that's another video for another day. It was very obvious that that event was staged. Both Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake are monarch children. That's also a video for another day. But just getting back to the point for you brothers, when you're dealing with these females, whether it's in the workplace or in your personal life, and they're in that range from their late 20s all the way throughout their 30s, and you're trying to figure out why this broad is going through all these emotional topsy-turvies, is because they're having a hard time understanding themselves. The modern day woman is not trained to be a woman. She's trained to compete with men. So she gauges and judges everything according to how men act, how men are perceived, what the standards of propriety are for men as opposed to women. In her mind, men are allowed to get away with everything. In reality, she's just jealous of men because, for the most part, men don't struggle with many of the issues that women struggle with psychologically because, for the most part, men don't view themselves in juxtaposition to womanhood. The woman views herself in juxtaposition to manhood. Men in this society have their own set of problems. The main problem being in regards to the so-called black man, that he does not know his culture and he does not respect his higher power. But again, that's a video for another day. Let's see what they have to say about Miss Janet Jackson.
Janet Jackson is now revealing that despite appearances, she wasn't always in control and
No shit, Maurice Dubois. No shit, brother. Even the anchor here seems to be mocking her to some degree, because even he knows that she's full of shit, and that many of the ideologies that are taught to women in this modern day society are to their detriment. Just look at this magazine cover. This is Essence. It says at the right hand portion of the page, special report, what happy black women know. That must be like a 1-sentence article, because I'm not sure what they know. At the bottom right, it says 26 ways to your big O. Oh boy, this is a big joke.
a letter to Essence magazine, Jackson opens up about her battle with depression and low self-esteem during the majority of her 30s.
Now wait a minute, wasn't Janet Jackson a cultural icon, an icon for women all throughout her 30s? Now we're learning that she was depressed, that she was mentally downtrodden, she had a very poor self-image, confused. Let's see what solved her problem.
Now at 52, she says her depression was an intense and frightening experience. Jackson says true happiness finally came from her 1-year-old son, Isa.
Get out of here. You mean to tell me that true happiness came to this lady after she had her child? You know why that is, brothers? Because the woman was put on the earth to be a wife and a mother. She was not put on the earth to constantly be trying to compete with men. Whenever you're trying to compete with another entity that was set up for a different vocation from you, you're setting yourself up for disaster. In the same way, the so-called black man has accepted many of these Luciferian ideologies. He no longer wants to respect the power of the higher power, the omniscience, the omnipresence, the omnipotency of the higher power. He wants to call himself God and embrace these Masonic Luciferian ideologies like 5%er, and he's an atheist, and he's going to conjure the powers of the gods of Kemet. And when you ask the so-called black man what tribe in Kemet is he from, he never knows. This is why the native Africans laugh at you, so-called black man, because you make a mockery of yourself. And because you're making a mockery of yourself, the Most High has allowed your woman to make a mockery of herself, making a jackass of herself on a regular, trying to compete with men, talking about how she's a strong black woman. The strength of the woman is in her role. It's in her role. There's a beauty and a strength to the woman, and it's not in trying to usurp the power of the man. All the fame and the adoration that this woman received over the course of about 40 years of her life was all for naught until she had her child, because that is the reason why she's on the earth. And that's the bottom line of it.
And those moments when she kisses him and sings him to sleep.
I wonder if she lip syncs him to sleep. Anyway, it is what it is. Point being is this: as I've been telling you brothers for a very long time, the female starts to mature at about 45 years old in general. Are there exceptions to that rule? Of course. There are always exceptions to the rule, but in general, the female starts to mature at 45 years old. But the most important thing to understand is that they need guidance. And that's where you come in, so-called black man. You have to pick the right female to impregnate, to inseminate, whatever you want to call it, so that you guys can raise your children with some type of harmony in the household, with an understanding of the importance of both those energies, as opposed to constantly being in conflict with one another. Anytime you see a female that is as confused as Janet Jackson was, it's because she was embracing Luciferian principles. And that's why I tell brothers all the time, when you see these feminists trying to go hard like they try to go, it's not because they're trying to convince you, it's because they're trying to convince themselves. They don't believe in most of that bullshit that they try to spout. A woman can do whatever a man can do, and God is a woman. They don't even believe that bullshit. There was some idiot that tried to tell me that the black woman was God on one of these videos that I did. I believe it was a so-called black man who tried to tell me that, but there are many modern so-called liberal black females who believe this. Point being is this, brothers. The so-called black woman, and all women, but the so-called black woman, because my channel is geared towards the so-called black man, so of course the so-called black woman is our problem. They have a lot of beauty, but they have to be told about the beauty that they have. Because the beauty that the woman is being told to embrace in this society is meant to destroy herself and everyone around her. But they don't grasp this because for the most part, they're two-dimensional thinkers. So you have to deal with a woman who understands her own natural beauty and is not trying to dim the beauty of the man so that she can make her own beauty shine. Because that's just darkness. And when you're dealing with people with all that darkness, if you have the patience to try to edify them or illuminate them, then go ahead and do it. But you also have to understand that you could be collateral damage when they have a flashback to who they really are or the energies that they've come to embrace in their daily life. Very dangerous dealing with these modern Luciferian liberal black females. Very, very dangerous. But anyway, peace.